the Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spagnola.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 100 of the Numinous Podcast. Hooray! We are celebrating this with, well, some bubble to begin with. We've got a nice bottle of Paul Roger Brut here. And this episode is going to be Ruben and I doing a bit of reminiscing, going through my favorite episodes and fan favorite episodes and pairing them with cocktails. Cheers to 100.
Here's to 100. There's already so many stories we could tell. We can talk about these glasses. We can talk about Paul Roger. Mm-hmm. We could talk about, let's start with Carmen Spagnola. Did you ever imagine in your life ever that you would make 100 podcast episodes?
No, I am a great starter and a terrible finisher. Not that I'm finishing at 100, but I just mean that first of all, when I started the podcast, it was weekly. And I didn't think it would be that hard to get to 100. Mark Maron does it, you know. And then over the last few years, I've become steadily more and more embittered that people who get paid by huge advertisers or who have, illustrious public broadcasters and radio stations behind them, that they call themselves podcasts. Yeah. They have like teams.
Right.
They have story arc writers. They have, anyway.
When really they're just an unscheduled radio show.
Exactly. Precisely. So, as far as actually being a podcast, somebody, doing this kind of in the office while the, guy next door is weed whacking and while my family is being loud with the pots and pans, that's a real podcast. So I kind of feel like I've been in the trenches for a while now. And so I'm extra proud of myself. This is actually quite an achievement. I moved away from weekly and started releasing batches like Netflix. So people could just sort of binge and enjoy it that way. And then that means that I can create the way I like to create, which is in fits and spurts.
Binge until you feel sick.
Yeah, that's how I work too. So this episode is a little like a Casey Kasem's top 20 countdown meets drunk history, because we're going to talk about the last 4 years of doing the show. And I asked some hardcore listeners, put it out there on social media, what are your favorite episodes? I got to choose in the end. Which episodes are going to be paired with cocktails today. I did not choose any episodes that solely feature me. That's kind of the one place where fans and I disagree.
I'm just thinking maybe I'll stand up and let the cat outside. Otherwise, we're going to hear plaintive meows and scratching
the whole rest of the time. So we downed our first little bit of champagne pretty quick there.
Mine was a very little bit.
Well, we have quite a few episodes to go here. So, the first favorite is a personal favorite. It's actually a very recent episode. And it's episode 93, Queer Nature with Pinar and So. I love those folks. I love them so much. And so I have chosen this lovely white wine, Butari's Moscofilero. The reason I chose this very summery white wine from Greece is to honor the Turkish and Greek heritage and the shepherding, ancestral shepherding lineage that Pinar and So have. So Moscofilero is the type of grape. I love this wine. I don't have to be eating Greek food. It just has to be, it could be a sunny day. It could be a slightly overcast day. It could be nighttime. I love this wine. It's fantastic.
Isn't this the wine that it's haunted, or it's doesn't the name mean
No,
like
that was a different Assyrtiko.
Assyrtiko, I thought
Is another grape.
Is another grape.
So these are all from Butari. This is the one time that I actually tried hard to win a trip when I was a wine rep, because usually, they have all these contests for sales reps to like compete against each other to try to win a trip to go to a winery, but your manager comes with you and your like teammates, your colleagues. So,
if John Pilley is listening, he was a fabulous manager. That's not who she's talking about.
No, exactly. John Pilley is excluded from that. However, while working under John Pilley, I actually tried really hard to win this trip, and I won. And it's so funny because the reason that I tried really hard was it was the first promo trip where you could take your partner. You could take a friend. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I want to go with my husband to Greece. And I took all my wines around to all these Greek restaurants, trying to get placements. And at first they're all like, no, thank you. They were all stuck with their traditional brands. And I wanted to go so bad that I went back like a month later and I just kept making appointments, everybody. And I would say, I understand all of your points. I'm wondering though, even still, if you would just reconsider. And I told them, because I would love to go to Greece. I want to see these places. And then what was wonderful about Butari was all the winemakers we met were women in their 30s. Mm-hmm. It was
amazing.
Awesome.
Well, and another thing that was wonderful, that whole trip was wonderful. Mind-boggling in so many ways. But something that was quite amazing is that Butari has been like gene sequencing the grapes or something they use. So they're really into ancient Greek varietals. Mm-hmm. So they found grape DNA that they're still using that is 10,000 years old, if I recall the trivia correctly.
Yeah, and this was the trip also where I'm sure I like fell into some weird time-space continuum at the ruins at Knossos on Crete. Yeah. Man, I was time traveling, man. I felt ill.
Not the last time ruins have sent you into a spin.
That's true. Yeah, there's been a lot of time gaps happening. France too. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but this is about Pinard and So.
I thought this whole thing was one giant off topic.
It is kind of one giant off topic. But I was trying to think like if I wanted to drink with them, because we had said like I'd love to drink beer with those folks, and but if I were actually going to do some kind of honoring, I was kind of racking my brain for a bit. What would I want to serve? But I could listen to their episode again and again and drink bottles of Greek wine as I do. That would be a wonderful amount. That would be a wonderful time spent. That would be loafing intelligently, and I would love that.
It's interesting that you talk about the time warp or time space warp that you fell into in the ruins of Knossos, because I feel like that's something that can be said about many of these episodes that you're featuring today, is that you listen to it and kind of walk away feeling dizzy and discombobulated because there are, so many of these people have really they pull you into a different way of seeing.
Oh yeah.
That
absolutely.
is incredible.
This episode where I asked, what identities do you lead with? And Pinard was like, well, I identify as, Chinese and all of their background. And then was like, and with creek and riparian ecosystems. I was like, can you just say more about that? Yeah.
Mind blown.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And also in the kind of way that you feel happy and excited because it's just pulled you into this like expanded way of being in the world that's like, I could say I identify with mountain like that. I can wax poetic about it, but it's another thing to say. That's part of my identity. I kind of really fell in love. And So is a fantastic writer and has written some really excellent essays. And one in particular on tracking and trailing, which I think is a phenomenal compliment. So anybody who liked that episode, hit me up, because there's an essay. Maybe I'll link to it in their show notes. I'll have to circle back around to it, but fantastic article. So I have this list of episodes I wanted to reminisce about, and I had to end up clustering some of them with one cocktail because I can't drink like 15 cocktails in a night. I know you could.
Why didn't we split this up into 2 episodes then?
Because that would just be Wednesday night at our house, and we wanted to do something special. So I'm going to move us on now.
Okay.
And we're going to have to move over. We should have martini glasses for this. But we'll use what we've got here. So there's a cluster of interviews that I was super freaked out about. We're just like walking into the kitchen now. This is live, folks.
That's right.
And so we're moving around the house now.
I am actually the microphone stand here, so the problem with that is that I can't fetch you martini glasses or anything else.
That's okay. We're going to use these glasses. These were great. So the next episodes that I want to highlight, I'm calling them by their group. It's episodes 73, 55, 54, 51, 49. And this group is called Women of Towering Intellect and Elegant Articulation. Okay, so it's Charlene Spretnak, Nicole Foss, and Carolyn Baker. So the cocktail, let's go through the cocktail first, because I could talk forever about their shows. It's called the Nomayo. This is a Saint Germain, Aperol, lemon juice, champagne combination here. So I'm going to start with 1 part Saint Germain, which is the elderflower liqueur. And I'm going to mix that with a 1/2 part of Aperol. These are going to be, I think, kind of strong here, love. I know you're up to it, but let's pace ourselves.
No, let's just split it.
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, but I already poured a second. Well, here we go. Okay, and now, the Aperol. After the 1/2 part of Aperol, we're going to do a 1/2 part of lemon juice. And then we will top that with a float of champagne. Unfortunately, we have this beautiful bottle of Paul Roger here. I also...
Try capsule prematurely.
Yeah, we've got 2 more drinks that are going to be topped with bubble, actually. I love Saint Germain. This Saint Germain has been quite a hit on retreats as well. Remember on the Intuitive Development Retreat, we did Saint Rita's. It was Saint Germain and tequila and lime. It was margarita, but with Saint Germain in it. So good. Okay, let's go sit back down and talk about women of towering intellect.
Okay.
I was pretty nervous about each and every one of those episodes.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe talk about each of them, about how much they...
Oh my God, no. I want to talk about how good this cocktail is.
She literally will not let go of the glass.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a second. And it's a beautiful color. It's sort of this coral color.
It's actually it's slightly more pink than an orange Mr. Freezy.
That's right.
So I'm inviting you to imagine this frozen.
Oh my goodness. And it's so good. It's floral and a little bit digestif. Oh yeah. That's really nice. We might have to design a retreat just for more cocktails.
It's not unlike a Campari and orange.
But with the elderflower.
Campari and orange mimosa.
Yeah. It's all the things. It's so good. It's very elegant.
It's absolutely elegant.
It is absolutely up to the task of celebrating and honoring women of towering intellect. So I think the first that I invited on might have been Nicole Foss. She has gone by the pseudonym Stonely online at a website called The Automatic Earth. And I will say this, the #1 most downloaded episode of all time of the New Myths podcast is her episode. She has two, How to Build a Lifeboat. So it seems that economic anxiety really sells.
Yes. Yeah, she's again, like she blows your mind, like pulls you into a different way of seeing, and kind of like busts all the paradigms of how we think about an economy, how we think about money, and how we think about value and wealth, and just an incredible thinker.
Yeah, so she's an energy analyst. She is she's like talking about peak oil. She's talking about economy and historic crashes and lots of studying of sociology and herding behavior. So,
And one of these people that has, like, she has like 2 doctorates or something like that. It's the sort of thing where she goes to university to get another degree and can just take a few more courses on the side and get another degree along with it, sort of thing. Like, just an amazing scholar.
Yeah, a real polymath too, in just so many areas, and is able to have kind of this syncretic approach. She's able to synthesize a lot of different fields into something that seems very coherent. And then after you dive into her worldview, you're like, I just don't think I can inhabit my life in the same way anymore.
Yeah, it sure makes it hard to get excited about real estate.
That's true. And that episode was so great. Well, she has 2, and I think it was How to Build a Lifeboat, where I asked a question for my friend Sarah, who ended up, she and Ryan followed Nicole's advice pretty much on what to do with their real estate. And so Nicole, if you're interested at all in kind of, what would you say? It's not quite doomsday prepping, but it is like if you're coming to apocalypse camp with us this fall at Hollyhock, that's a good episode to listen to first. It's like, what are the kind of, how many does she have? How many steps in How to Build a Lifeboat? 7 or 10?
Or 12 or something? Or 40?
This is like the top 10 kind of thing.
In the primer?
The primer, yeah. And so she's talking about how to prepare for converging emergencies of economic, social, and environmental collapse.
I called the Automatic Earth the Econopocalypse blog.
Econopocalypse, that's right.
Yeah. And Stoneleigh, as Carmen was saying, she was like a energy researcher for the Ontario government or something like that. Like, she was studying and making recommendations on the grid and on renewable energy, and was a Canadian editor, along with her writing partner Alargi, I believe, of the Canadian version of the Oil Drum, which was a huge peak oil resource page. And then their analysis was that the economic forces were going to be hitting us faster and harder than peak oil would. And so they shifted their focus onto analyzing the economy and how we should prepare for that.
And that bore out.
Yeah.
Very much. 2008, yeah, for sure. Also in this cluster then is Carolyn Baker, who wrote a book called Conscious Collapse, and also another book called Love in the Age of Apocalypse. So I have 2 episodes with her. And
Ecological Apocalypse, I think it's called.
Is that what I said?
You said Love in the Age of Apocalypse, I think.
Oh, yeah, Economic Apocalypse, yeah. Ecological. Sorry. Thank you. I'm already 3 drinks in here. However...
It's only going to get better, folks.
Yeah, more unintelligible. Okay, I'm 3 drinks in, so I'm just going to tell people, because I don't think Carolyn Baker's going to listen to this one.
This is when we announce that it's actually going to be Ruben taking over the podcast from now on, because Carmen is drunk.
Carmen is lost. No. So I was super excited because I emailed Carolyn and was like, hey, I would love to have you come on my show and talk about Collapsing Consciously, your book, which is kind of like daily practices and meditations and that kind of stuff. Oh, actually, I might be conflating that with the second book she has. Okay. Anyway, she has a whole body of work around collapsing consciously. And she emailed me back. She responded in like 5 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, this person that I've followed for some time now, whose books I really enjoyed, who seems like really, beyond arm's length.
Is she the one we went to see speak in North Van years and years ago, like when we were first dating?
She might have been. No, I don't think so. That woman. Anyway. but in the same kind of genre.
Yeah.
We went, those were our first dates, was going to Econopocalypse talks. It's so cute. Anyway, okay, we're meant to be together. So she was the first person who wanted prompt questions beforehand. And I was like, oh yeah, that's maybe a good idea. Like have a structure for your conversation. So I sent them along and could tell pretty quick. And she also said, would you like a copy of my forthcoming book? And I was like, oh my God, this is the first manuscript? Like, hells yeah. And so she sent it to me and I was like feeling pretty special. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, this has definitely got to be 2 different episodes. And also then I had to speed read her book, right? So I felt very Oprah Book Club, like, oh, I've got to get through this so that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And then I could see in her glasses, we were like meeting over video conference, I could see the reflection of her computer screen was that she had typed out all her answers. Oh. Yeah. And so then it was awkward because she kind of read her answers. And I tried to like throw some curveballs by asking the questions a little differently and asking some follow-ups, but she kind of kept, I could just tell that was not really her jam. Right. So that was kind of weird. However,
educational for a beginning podcaster.
Absolutely. Very educational from developing your interviewing chops. So instead of sending like full questions now, I kind of say these are prompts and I kind of go, it'll be about this kind of topic. So I don't sort of ask as directly as I used to.
Nonetheless, this is in your top 10 or how many are we doing?
Nonetheless, because she just had such great content. Then the last towering intellect, just a woman who's vast knowledge and just pretty sweeping body of work. And again, the resume. So, okay, so you're an author, you're a feminist, you've written some beautifully strong defenses of other feminist scholars like Maria Gimbutas. She's, Charlene Spretnak. She's in the Journal of Archaeomythology. I think it was Socio-Archaeomythology or something like that. She wrote this defense of all the kind of pile-on and backlash that came on Maria Gimbutas, who basically discovered that the ancient cultures of Kukatani and those places were matrilineal or at least matrifocal, meaning egalitarian, not necessarily, female dominant, but egalitarian societies. Anyway, fantastic. So I asked Charlene Spretnak to come on the show because I'd read Lost Goddesses of Early Europe. I'd done a talk, episode, I think 67, Learning to See in the Dark. It's somewhere in there, might not be 67. Anyway, she agreed to come on and told some great stories, but also kind of partway through, I was like, I think our feminism is starting to diverge. Very strong second wave feminist. And this was really important for me because I am kind of a blend of like radical feminism and also I believe very strongly in intersectionality. And so I want to honor my elders in second wave feminism, and I love
the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, I'm on the shoulders of giants here. I got to speak with Charlene Spretnak, and when we were not recording, you know what she said to me? She said, I was a very interesting woman. I thought, well, what's that quote by Tolkien? Praise from the praiseworthy is beyond all reward. So if Charlene Spretnak tells you you're interesting, I can fucking lay it all down now. Yeah. I'm done.
Nothing but growing roses from here on.
Wow. I don't want that cocktail to end. Okay. Except now... Sorry, go ahead.
Is it Charlene Spretnak or Maria Gimbutas that wrote so much about the earlier versions of the classic myths?
Oh, that's Charlene Spretnak. Okay. Yeah, her book, Lost Goddesses of Early Greece, and it's the pre-Hellenic mythologies. She wrote that book in the 70s, mind you, 78. I was like 3. Yeah, fantastic book. And
when you were reading it, you were just, you could not believe it. You couldn't lay it down.
Yeah, it's a really tiny book. And really the only one of the ancient myths, the Greek myths, that has any kind of really like plot-driven narrative is the myth of Demeter and Persephone, which absolutely captivated me because, of course, in the Olympian version, it's the rape of Persephone. And wow, to go back to the pre-Olympian, pre-patriarchal version, again, like blew my mind, but also felt so good. It's like you hear information and you can feel a biological rightness in your body, and you're like, that's gotta be right. It just felt emancipating to read that. Of course, most of the other myths are, as my friend Holly would say, pre-patriarchal Greek myths basically go like this. So, nature and scene. Like, that's like kind of like, it's a version of some earthborn goddess who, gives you the good, the bad, and the ugly, teaches you how to use it, tells you to be careful, and that's pretty much it. But they were fantastic. They were just, I highly recommend that book. The next episode, I should probably just let people know. The way I'm organizing this is not by episode number. It's by cocktail flight. So we're kind of going light to richer.
Okay.
Richer in texture, higher alcohol content as we move along. And then we're going to end on a bit of a cleanser.
All right.
Okay, so it's like it's a whole journey here. I am noticing I'm a little burpy, which is going to be a little bit of an interruption. So, Numinous Podcast, this next episode and drink are, so I'm calling it the Tiffany.
Okay.
Because my next favorite episode is called, I think it's called On Land, Language, and Everything Important with Tiffany Joseph. And so I wanted to create a cocktail that would be as local or as plant-based, land-based, as gathered as possible. So why don't I grab the recipe and you follow me over to the bar here, Ruben? All right.
I'm getting alarmed that you're putting ice in 2 glasses. Since
this one is this one's pretty low alcohol. So the first thing that's going to happen is I have made a violet simple syrup, macerated some violets from our yard, and boiled that up with a bit of sugar. Violet syrup is a beautiful blue color until you add any kind of acid to it. So enjoy this beautiful blue indigo color. It's about to become fuchsia because after this tablespoon of violet syrup, I'm going to add a splash of lemon juice. Just want to heighten this up a little bit. These are in short rocks glasses. So it's a drop of this, a drop of that. Now, I'm also going to do a drop of rose water. Now, had this been the right season, I, of course, would have made rose water tincture from my own heirloom roses, which I will say, I've been thinking a lot about it lately, working on this with my mentor and clinical supervisor, Patty, a couple times, or at least once, and talked to some people who are herbalists, foragers, plant-cestral medicine folks. And the idea of actually being really in a relationship with a plant speaks to me very strongly when I think about my ancestor tree, the ash tree in our backyard, and when I think about roses. They make me weep. Not just in a frustrated way, because sometimes they frustrate me, but I love them so. And the medicine is so good for me. It's my go-to for almost everything. Not because roses are always indicated in every situation, but because my relationship with them is so special and dear to me. So violet syrup, rose water, a splash of elderflower, a splash of lemon, and then we're going to top it with our very own homemade dry apple cider, which we press.
Okay.
So how is it, Ruben?
It's delicious, as you say. It's light and refreshing. The elderflower really comes through.
Mm-hmm. It's quite gentle, like Tiffany.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She is gentle, but man, she has a core of steel.
Yeah. Talk about a force of nature. You know, she's she's a strong tree, or she's, you know, a bog log. She's just like enduring and grounded. She's right at the water table all the time, you know.
Well, and like Pinar and so, it's so interesting, of course, because these are all Indigenous women. That you can feel her being closer to nature in a way that I can't feel in my own body. So it's beautiful to spend time with her.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to hear Tiffany offer territorial acknowledgement a few times, and you know, she's done my astrology chart. I still want to have her on the show to do some astrological thing. Maybe at the end of 2018 we'll like do something to she can tell us what some of the transits are in 2019 or something like that. I met Tiffany at a language revitalization workshop, and it was about learning techniques of language revitalization, not specifically learning a particular language itself. However, Tiffany is one of those people with a certain kind of facility for language. Great memory, great demeanor, has the approach and warmth and loving kindness, you know, that can make you feel really encouraged about that kind of work. And one of the most arresting moments, and I mean this in a great way, even though it was, my heart felt like it was in a vice when it happened, was in the interview with her. We were like in a side room at lunchtime at the workshop doing this interview, episode 69. And I said something about how can settlers support language revitalization. And she said, you know, looking me in the eye, she said, so basically you want me to tell you how to treat me well. It gets me this time too. Because that's really what that question is, right? Teach me how to treat you well. It was like the most poignant response to a question. And it was both touching and beautiful in its honesty and its compassion, the way she delivered her response, and also painful. You know, I felt very exposed as a settler who feels shame about what my ancestors have done and what I have done, and the things that I blindly and ignorantly sometimes perpetuate, and all the ways in which I would like to be better. Just felt very exposed in that moment. And I had already been living with that question for a couple of years. How do I honor ancestors who weren't very honorable? And kind of the best I could come up with was the 94 recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's like, okay, so start at the top or wherever you want, work your way through. That's how you honor them, right? Is through repair and making things right. But that was just a touching and refreshing moment that I cherish. You know, that's one of the opportunities of having a creative outlet like a podcast like this.
What's next on the agenda here, Carmen? We've got a lot of beverage ahead of us in this. Carmen called them low rocks glasses, I think, but really what they are is a fecund, round, hand-filling
it's
ball.
It's a fulsome tumbler.
with a beautiful mercury silver lip. And furthermore, we we haven't seen these glasses in 3 years. We just have had them returned to our lives because we thought we'd lost them in the move. We'd finally just given up hope on ever seeing them again.
And then we found them in the crawl space. Yeah, so we hadn't been having hard alcohol cocktail hour for quite some time until we found these glasses a couple months ago. And now we're like, yes. So we only have 4 more drinks to go.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we're trucking along.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like a palate cleanser. This is an intermezzo. But I'm almost done mine. I could probably, just through the magic of podcasting, I bet you I could go over and start the next one. Yeah.
That is the magic of podcasting, ladies and gentlemen, because her glass is nowhere near empty.
But it's gonna be. Okay, so the next one is called The Druid. Can you imagine why?
Who would even know a druid in this day and age anyway?
Yeah, druids don't even exist.
Yeah, it's fake news.
They do. Yeah. So, Numinous Podcast episodes 44, 59, 90, 96, and 99 all feature the one, the only, John Michael Greer, former Grand Archdruid of the Archdruid of North America or something like that. American Orders of yeah. We're in it. Nobody. Yeah, you're gonna have to take over for a second because my belly's poochy.
Well, Carmen, so you just listed 5 episodes with John Michael Greer in them. Another towering intellect, I would say, and again, another person who has come through the peak oil scene. Though he is now in an amazing travesty of modern internetship. He's closed down his blog.
Yeah, but then somebody sponsored to have it people were, I think, quite distressed about that.
I was quite distressed. It broke half the links on my website.
Yeah.
Yeah, he closed down his blog. He was just like, okay, my work here is done. I'm actually going to print this blog as books, and you can check them out of the library. What are you looking for? Oh,
I was looking for the bourbon.
The bourbon. Yeah.
I got it now. I will say this. Thanks to the magic of the podcast, we can imagine that this is actually Buffalo Trace bourbon.
Right.
We're not going to say what kind of bourbon it really is, but everybody, if you were going to make the Druid cocktail, which is, I should just, since I'm talking, 1 part bourbon, half a part lemon, a splash of maple syrup, and then top it with dry apple cider. And it's a little bit like, it's kind of like a bourbon sour, but a little spritzy.
Your mise en place is not complete here because you don't have any maple syrup ready.
No, yeah, I'm going to have to grab that.
And I can't help because I'm holding a microphone.
Yeah, it's all good. But you could talk about the Archdruid. I guess he doesn't like us to call him that anymore because he stepped down from being the Archdruid.
Now he is merely a druid, I guess.
Yeah.
The former Archdruid, we can call him. Or we could just call him John Michael Greer.
Yeah, John. We're on a first name basis now. Yeah.
He actually goes by the name John.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't just go by JMG, which those of us online call him. But I will say this, I'm kind of cock blocking you with JMG because you totally brought him into our lives. The first book he recommended was The Long Descent. Again, if you're coming to Apocalypse Camp with us at Hollyhock, that's going to be recommended reading. But also his other book, Mystery Teachings of the Living Earth, which I think is episode 44. And so you were all on the Archdruid Report, the Well of Galabees, which is his magic blog. You were sending me stuff all the time, and I'd be yeah, this guy's good. And then
I read every one. So I found him, I don't know, maybe in 2004 or 5. And as soon as I found his blog, I was like, whoa, this is mind-blowing. And so then I went back to the beginning of his blog and started reading from the very beginning. And then somewhere in there, I also just started reading every single one of the comments.
You're his #1 fan.
I am pretty much.
And he's actually said he likes your comments or something like that. He said some nice things to you the comments, I think.
Yeah. He did actually credit me in one of his articles because I introduced the phrase peak meaninglessness.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. You have been mentioned,
Yeah,
which I have not.
Which was a chest swelling moment for me.
It really was. And then I go and be like, hey, I should have him on my show.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's a total press hog.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
He's
like
skilled
he's been on hundreds of podcasts and radio shows and that kind of stuff because that's what he is. He's an author. He has written like over 40 books. He's on the Asperger's kind of, or the autism spectrum. So that's what I chalk that up to, so that I don't feel like a useless piece of crap. Yeah, he can just produce. And so he's got to sell these books.
Yeah.
And
he does tend to write in fairly niche markets. Like I was just saying to Carmen that she should interview him about his recent translation of I think, medieval French fencing textbook.
That's right.
Which
I
so
will not.
There aren't that many people that can translate medieval French.
Him.
So let alone are also druids.
Let alone. Okay, so this actually I think should be. I can't shake it now because I put.
Put the bubbly.
I put a bit of bubble in it,
yeah,
but I
just stir it with your finger again.
I'm gonna stir it with my finger because we're at home. I needed it a little sweeter.
Through the magic of podcasting, the audience will be aware that you are stirring it with a solid gold swizzle stick.
That's right. Have a drink of that. So remember, this is the druid, and so it's earthy. It's kind of got that oaky. This is what I wanted with the bourbon, right? Bit of that smoked woodsy flavor to it, but also apple cider because we collect hundreds of pounds. You collect hundreds of pounds of apples, and you made the press. You press, and it's really not even worth starting unless we've got 400 or 500 pounds of apples, and you make, multi-year supply of this very refreshing dry apple cider. You go through it really fast, but another family would be able to last for some time. Bourbon, lemon, maple syrup, and this dry apple cider. It's kind of woodsy and lifted. It felt very druidish.
Yeah, it's delicious.
All right, let's sit down and drink.
Okay.
So, he also talked about ritual and magic. He also talked about, Secrets of the Temple, The Secret of the Temple. I didn't think I was going to like that book because I was like, meh, Freemasons. But, maybe I should go into this. Sometimes I see his titles, they're very niche, and I think, well, that's kind of wankerish, but I should just go and maybe there'll be something I either learn or I will discover that why I'm not really attracted to that. God damn it, that never happens. His books really appeal to the nerd in me. They really do. Yeah. So I just recorded episode 99 today. No, what am I talking about? I don't even know what day it is now because I'm 5 drinks in.
Was it yesterday? Was it the day before? It was
not today, but it was very recent.
It was very recently.
And
it was within this calendar month.
Yeah, it was within this calendar month. And it was about monsters. So I thought, okay, he's going to do all the Western occult stuff. And it's going to be good, but I'm never going to be able to live up to that amount of anal retentive perfection, constant. Why are you shaking your head? It's very prescriptive. But I still really enjoy it. And I'm not going to cherry pick, but I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to undo my belt. But I'm not going to cherry pick, but I am going to look for the principles and the techniques that are portable, right? So that, I'm not going to do the Rose Cross every morning. I'm not going to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentacle every morning. I don't know. No, that's not my thing. I'm very glad he does it though, because he's running in some interesting crowds. I gotta say the names he drops, but anyway, we did this thing on monsters. Once again, I was a total convert and a total fan, and totally it appealed to my nerd side and was like, oh yeah, I should probably bump up my protection a bit. But of course, I'm going to do it in a much more plant-based or not that he's not doing it in an earthy way, but instead of that kind of Western occult Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, that kind of those kind of rituals, I'll probably do a little bit more. I'm going to connect with the elements of our space, of our place, of our land, and ask them what we should be doing to kind of bump up our, more ongoing spiritual hygiene.
You know what you should do? You should do this so then I have an excuse to do this. Because we are trying to expand our cultural connection. Like, as we try to learn new things, we're trying to do it in a way that is actually ancestral.
Yeah, we're trying to research and reclaim our own indigeneity in the cultures of our ancestors. In the cultures of our past or deep past. Deep past, yeah.
And so, of course, you have a good Scottish history. Mm-hmm. And
I come from a long line of bastards that we don't know that history.
That's right. Whereas my kind of, I come from a whole bunch of English people and some Scandinavians, which is, maybe it's the winter, but I feel more at home with that sort of thing. But something I've been really interested in from plant magic is there's this tradition of, I think from the southern United States, like Appalachia, of working hexes like with roots. So you tie kind of like elaborate knots in roots and make hexes. I think that's
like southern conjuring stuff.
Okay. So
did you read about it through JMG?
No.
He got big into that.
But since Appalachia has so much Scots-Irish, you could make a plausible connection. And then
I'm a hexy type.
And then I could piggyback on you because I think doing root hexes sounds awesome.
So we know, though, about the law of, not reciprocity, but, return, like what is it? You're going to send it out, it's going to come back to you, so you have to be. So how do you personally feel about hexes, Ruben Anderson?
Well, I think the JMG talks about that as like he recently wrote about it where people are trying to curse Trump. And so he's saying like you are sending a big negative wave out into the universe, and that negative wave is going to keep rolling around, rolling right back over you. Whereas I think a lot more of the root work would be done like to protect your house. So it would be something that would be hanging over the door, or
what we've got for that. Well, you know what a lot of white people can do for that is the ancient Roman tablet. I don't have the word. I've lost it. Anyway,
the show notes are going to be fantastic.
They're going to be great. But they would write on a piece of metal, this is who, or I want to draw into my life a lover or a partner, or I want to curse this other person. And they would write it on metal and then they would bury it. And so they've actually found caches of, upwards of 1,500 of these Roman prayer tablets, which were, similar to writing things and putting them in the ground or root work or what have you. It's like kind of the same principles. Again, this is why I like JMG, because he's very good at finding cross-cultural examples of these sort of core practices, which I very much appreciate. Maybe you could do me the honors for this one. So the next cluster of episodes I'd like to lift up and highlight. It's a little bit shameful that I'm doing this late in the show and I'm feeling slightly slurry.
Just slightly, Carmen?
Yeah. So this is to my teachers. So this is Johnny Gray, Judy G, and Sparrow Hart. These are people, I should say episodes 9, 13, and 22. Early in the podcast, actually. these are people that I've worked with, studied with. Basically, I said, I admire and respect your work, and I will pay whatever it takes to work with you. So I was a client of Johnny's for a couple years. I apprenticed with her in regression work. We traveled to France for our honeymoon because I wanted to work with Judy G. We rented the house next door for a month so I could walk to her house and work with her. That was so good. And Sparrow, I went into the desert and I apprenticed with him. So I started working with him in, I guess, 2007 and apprenticed with him in 2017. So relationships that span, a decade or more with these teachers. And the beverage that I would like to honor them with is a shot of Fireball, because working with them hurts so good. It always opens up. The work I did with Johnny in like 2005 and 6 is still unfolding now. And if I couldn't possibly have interpreted some of the journeys that I did with her as accurately then as I can now. But basically what's spooky is like my whole life has been written basically in the stars. It's like my subconscious knew exactly what's going to happen, and I couldn't even understand what was about to come. And the same with Judy. We just did the work I did with Judy was she took the training wheels off my bike. Really helped me go, no, you're going to move out into the world and do intuitive work, freestyling with no safety net. And with Sparrow, what's been really interesting there is, he gave me such a thorough tour of traditions, Western traditions, settler traditions of rites of passage, in a form that is, how would I put it? That follows and has been in some cases handed down from Native American traditions. But the courage that I needed with Sparrow was to kind of find my own way. And so he created the space for me to learn from him. But I also think, was like, and now, so some people apprentice with him for years before they lead their own quests. I did one apprentice quest and was like, I'm doing my next one. I went to the mountain and asked, am I ready for this? I gave myself, a sense of, it came to me while I was out there, like, oh, this is the task. If you can accomplish this task at the end of these 4 days in the desert, then you can lead quests. And so he held space for me to figure it out for myself. So in each case, it's been kind of scary, but also, again, that biological sense of rightness in your body because you trust your teacher so much. Even in the places where I'm like, but I'm going to do it my own way, or I'm going to diverge a little bit, but I feel their influence and their integrity. Like, these are people that they're each such strong survivors too, in their own way. When I did my apprenticeship with Johnny, her son Connor was there assisting her, and he ended up being killed in a motorcycle crash just a couple years later. And she basically channeled him for years after that. They had such a strong bond. And I find that parenting relationship, even beyond the physical body, really inspiring. And Judy was like right in the shit when I was studying with her partner. And her episode is all about sort of working in different ways with male and female energies. And then Sparrow's episode, of course, is on the Vision Quest. which now is, I mean, the work that I'm most devoted to in my life. So,
to the teachers.
To the teachers. Sweet sipping cinnamon whiskey.
Delicious.
Delicious. So the next cocktail is just some rum chata over ice. I wonder if you wouldn't mind dishing that up.
I was wondering if I was going to be allowed to yell rum chata.
So episode 77 with Juliana Abalchuk. I don't even know where to begin with that. I was shook by that episode. So she's the forensic archaeologist who, I wanted to ask about her Mayan ancestry or Mesoamerican lineage and some of her magical workings. And then when she was like, yeah, I did work on identifying bodies of people trying to, what's the word when you're trying to get in? Oh God, I have no words. Immigrate, they're crossing the desert on foot and they die in the desert trying to find a better life. And I just was like, I'm sorry, what? Can you, I just never brought it home into such vivid imagery before. That was an intense episode for me. So I'm drinking rum chata, which is horchata and rum. And we chose this because we couldn't get any Mayan alcohol up here. But this is made in the Yucatan, which is that same area. So it's a creamy after dinner drink. I'm just having it over ice. You could have it in a cappuccino or a frappuccino, or I'm sure there are things you could do with it, but it's nice. It's a nice little sipper.
And Juliana is she's like again, filled with steel, and just so kind of relentless about helping you see.
And she is very devoted to helping settlers see what's happening. And when she says settlers, she's not saying white people. She's saying people whose ancestors are not indigenous to this land. And so I think there's a bunch of people of color who think that they're not in that group. And Juliana sure lets them know. And that was a huge eye-opener for me, actually, is to have Juliana say, well, the one challenge I'm having here with Black Lives Matter is that guess who's underneath that is the water protectors. And so intersectionality, reaching different movements in different ways, was like, oh, right. So, that was very educational.
She was also the one that taught us that in Europe people would smudge with mugwort instead of sage. And again, asked, why am I the one telling you this?
Yeah, I know. Again, the exposure, right? Like, I feel both grateful and ashamed in this moment right now. Yeah, we have that. I have that a lot with Juliana. And, however, after she said that, I looked out. We have a huge rosemary bush, you could call it, shrub. It's not just a plant, right outside our front door there. And I thought, I bet you that's been used as smudge. And when totally ancient, totally common. And so after that it was like, oh yeah, you use what's there. And so we use rosemary as a smudge pretty often. There was like one time when you were away and I needed to trim the rosemary bush, and so I had this huge, it was almost like a besom, like it was like a witch's broom. It was like really big. This is like huge swag of rosemary. And I wanted to smudge our garden. And basically I had I set alight a torch of rosemary, and the entire neighborhood, like it was just gray smoke everywhere. But I just was, swishing it back and forth all through the garden, up and down every row.
Embers found the greenhouse.
Oh, the greenhouse wasn't built then.
Oh.
Yeah, so this was a while ago, but all inspired by Juliana. I'm sorry, I'm so we've had a lot of bubbles, and now we're having creamy things.
Yeah. It's going to be a great night, ladies and gentlemen. Juliana contains multitudes. And I think so I just want to talk about rum chata a bit. So rice is the base of horchata, which is like a cinnamon ricey gruel beverage.
Very economical too, by the way.
Yes,
you want to make a great
cup of rice for a gallon of water or something like that. So rice was imported by the Spanish in the 1500s. So even though horchata is sort of like a near national beverage in many places, it is not indigenous. So the the Juliana's people would have been drinking corn-based liquors.
Right. Which we tried to find up here.
Yeah, you can't find that in the liquor store in British Columbia. And then, of course, rum, which is such a feature both of slavery, the slave trade in the Caribbean, and also then of empire, because it was the sustenance drink of the British Navy. So here we have this rum and horchata beverage. Well, I think it's perfect because Juliana so beautifully just keeps peeling back the layers of the onion so that you cry each time, to be like, and keep looking and keep looking and keep looking. So really, again, just an incredibly knowledgeable person
that we love and respect dearly. Never met her, Facebook friend only, but when I say only, I mean who has impacted us greatly. So speaking of keep looking, moving on to our final beverage in our countdown, and this is not in order of merit, or preference, but again, this is just following the
narrative arc of the alcohol.
Narrative arc of the alcohol. So now we're going to end on something that is going to be both strong and light at the same time. So I would like to honor our friend J.B. McKinnon, James, who was in one of the first early episodes, episode 5.
Wow.
Nature, Mind, and the Mystical. Wow. I know, it's quite an honor, actually, looking back, that I asked James, who's written one of Canada's bestsellers in popular literature, The 100 Mile Diet, co-authored with our friend and his partner, Elisa Smith. Hey, James, will you come on my podcast? And he's not a woo-woo type. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all about intuition and the mysteries of life. He's like, okay. I think because you guys have been friends for so many years, he said yes. We've had some very good late night talks as the embers are going out. And so on that episode, I was trying to push him, so what's your spiritual life like? He's basically nothing. But then he tells this great story, and it's one of my favorite stories of the podcast, where his mom, who now is, pretty much succumbing to dementia. She has progressed enough now that she's in a full-time care home. But he'd wanted to take her back to Prince Edward Island or Newfoundland. I think it was Newfoundland. Where was he?
Cape Breton.
Cape Breton. Going back to Eastern Canada, and he really wanted his mom to see a puffin.
Was this in Cape Breton or was this in Iceland?
Oh, maybe it was in Iceland. I didn't actually listen to all the episodes for this show. Yeah, maybe this was the trip to Iceland. Anyway, he did a couple of trips with her. And in the Iceland trip, he really wanted to see a puffin. And it was going on days and they hadn't seen a puffin. And so finally he was like, yeah. So then I basically said to the universe, please give us a puffin. And I was like, really? Because, I mean, that's the closest thing to him saying a prayer.
Praying.
Yeah. Ever. And then what do you know? There were like all these puffins, and he made this huge, like, look at the puffins. But his mom was so concerned about him freaking out that she didn't see any puffins. Because he was like, look at the... Anyway. So it's like this bittersweet moment. The beverage that I would like to honor J.B. McKinnon with is called the Bonnie Prince Charlie. Huh. And it has an ounce of Drambuie topped with champagne. Ooh, chink. An ounce of Drambuie topped with Paul Roger. Okay. And so we have discovered the reason we chose Drambuie is because Bonnie Prince Charlie was aided and abetted by the McKinnon clan to get over, after the Battle of Culloden, to get over to the Isle of Skye. And Bonnie Prince Charlie was so indebted to the clan McKinnon that he gave them the recipe for his Scottish liqueur, which is basically scotch and heather honey and a bunch of other things. Herbs and flowers and things like that. So Drambuie, it says right on it that it's been, endowed.
Yeah, sadly, James does not get like a yearly
stipend
shipment.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Clan McKinnon Distillery. Yeah. So here we are, an ounce of Drambuie, topping it with Paul Roger. Say when, Carmen?
That's good. When, okay. And of course, when I think of Bonnie Prince Charlie, I think of the Skyboat song. Oh, that's a tasty way to drink champagne. It's always tasty, but that's rich and honeyed.
Oh my.
That has some real depth to it.
Oh my.
Why would you drink a Rusty Nail when you can have a Bonnie Prince Charlie?
Well...
You're like, but if you're a really hardcore Scotch fan.
No, but also, it's a different experience. Like this is not earthy, right? This is light.
Oh, but this is like honey, and you really get the honeyed the heather honey notes out of this.
But a Rusty Nail is burning in the earth.
It really is. So, compared to this is so refined and elegant. It is a perfect combination of having a palate cleanser at the end of the night or a Scotch, wee dram.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah.
You don't keep me around for my refinement and elegance, that's for sure.
No, but you're very good at pouring what I tell you to pour. It's really good. Yeah. James, he has another book coming out.
He does. I don't know how soon it's coming out. In between that, of course, was The Once a Future World, which was also just a...
that kind of wrecked us, hey?
Tragically beautiful, wonderful book. And he researched it for 3 years and would send me emails with periodic research updates, which were often hilarious, often heartbreaking, always mind-blowing.
About little facts about what animals can do and how prolific they used to be, and first contact, colonial perspectives, of course, that's what first quote unquote first contact is, but just these reports of the proliferation of sea life, jungle life, forest life, plant life, animal life. It's just,
and just the crazy feats. So if you think about, like, when you think about a hummingbird, and again, he told me so many, it's been a few years, so I may be getting my facts mixed up. But when you think about a hummingbird, you think about a tiny little creature that has to, like, refuel every 5 minutes at the sugar water feeder. Otherwise it just passes out from exhaustion. Hummingbirds fly across the Gulf of Mexico.
And are these the birds that turn off half their brains?
No, that's the albatrosses, because they will fly for months without landing.
Oh my God.
And so they switch off they sleep half their brain at a time.
It's so magical. Well, and of course we had this whole thing about why are there always lions depicted in Europe, right? And then he talks about because there were lions in so many parts of the world that you don't find.
He doesn't talk about that. This is my personal theory after reading his book, which he poo-pooed actually.
Did he?
He did poo-poo it.
Okay, well, the other animals though.
Pretty stern poo-poo.
Really? There were not lions everywhere. That was just fucking colonial holdover. But he does talk about megafauna being in different parts of the world that you would never imagine it to be. And so, yeah, the 10% world, that we are currently living in a 10% world. So even the most wild places we've ever encountered or could imagine are 10% of the diversity and quantity and intensity and all of this stuff than they used to be, which I read on the plane to Europe to go work with Judy, and then we spent 2 months in Europe, which basically is a denuded landscape. And what did we see? Like,
I think we saw 6 mammals, and at least one of them was dead.
That's right. We saw a dead badger on the side of the road, and we were all so excited. We pulled over and touched it.
Yeah, regarded it. But not even things like squirrels. Like when I say 6 mammals, we saw 6 mammals in 2 months. Whereas here, we'll see 6 squirrels a day.
Oh my God, easily. Jesus Christ, those things are always digging in my garden. Anyway, love the squirrels.
So yeah, a terribly, terribly denuded landscape.
His episode, though, was so much about how he manages his humanity, anxiety and stuff like that. We talked about climbing, getting into meditative states while in nature. It was a really good episode. Yeah, I've done a lot of episodes now.
You have, including this one now. It will be 100.
And for our 50th episode, we did Badass Backyard Spirituality, which I'm going to tell you actually had a lot of votes for the favorites. The other ones were my speeches. I kind of feel like those are gimmies. I'm not going to say that they get to be in this top, 100th episode retrospective. But shout out to you, Ruben Anderson, for supporting your woman all this time through, because there's been a lot of times when you had to sort of shut up and put up because I was recording an important episode and everybody had to be silent in the house. So thank you, my long-suffering husband.
It seems incredible that 50 episodes have passed since that time. That doesn't seem that long ago that we recorded that.
Well, it was like 2 years, I guess.
Amazing. Time flies.
So that pretty much wraps it up. Couple of things though. If people want to hang out with us, I don't get all red cheeked and sloppy like this when I'm leading retreats.
Almost never do you get so red cheeked and sloppy as you are now.
Almost never. It's so true. I'm a little tired. It's been 100
Except for
episodes.
Well, I think you were just on Saturday, which was only a few days ago.
Yeah, actually, what episode was Jesse Hemphill? Yeah, Jesse has also been on the Numinous podcast, and we were hanging out on Saturday, and you and I and she and her man, we were singing songs and drinking wine. We got into some fun that night. Anyway, my point was, if people want to come on Quest with us, they should let us know soon, because it's happening in June.
Yes.
Very soon. They should let us know, definitely before June, if they could. And if you want to go onto my website to get all the information or to place an episode, my website is carmenspanyola.com. CarmenSpagnola. And we also mentioned a couple times that we're leading Apocalypse Camp. That is not what it's called. That was just kind of a joke. That's what Jesse's calling it. Jesse's coming. And someone else is coming, and there will be other folks there. It's on Cortez Island at Hollyhock Lifelong Learning Center. And it's all about, well, if you like the JMG episodes and you like the Nicole Foss or Charlene Spretnak, or Carolyn Baker, or James McKinnon, or Juliana, or Tiffany. If you like any of these episodes, you should probably come to camp with us, because we're going to be talking about how to be together and stay regulated and grounded and work together well while we face a future that is perpetually chaotic and uncertain.
And I'm hoping there will be sauerkraut.
Yeah, we're going to make sauerkraut. It's a retreat for people who are preppers, who think maybe they should look a little bit more at the spiritual aspect of it, and the interpersonal, how to kind of heal their own wounds of community so that they can function better at the communal level through these converging emergencies societally and globally. And it's for people who are spiritual, who really like, ritual and embodied practice and, kind of druidry and earth-based witchy pagan stuff. But quite frankly, have been bypassing this whole climate change, needing to face a future of permanent whitewater. It can kind of be for those camps. It's not a couples workshop, but I will say this, you're probably going to see us have to co-regulate interactively as we do our first co-led retreat.
Let's hope that goes well.
Yeah.
I will say that I think people who are preppers is the wrong characterization, because we garden a lot, but we do very little to stockpile beans and bullets. I think it's much more for people who are trying to re-village, that when you look at the world and you look at the converging emergencies, as Carolyn Maker would say, if the conclusion you come to is re-villaging, then this is
you're our
the
people.
workshop for you.
You should hang out with us, because we're going to practice re-villaging and also teach you some skills. So some of my somatic trauma resolution stuff is going to come in handy. A lot of your behavior change research stuff is going to come in handy. And of course, your sauerkraut making skills and canning skills. We very much believe in bonding through doing, and that the basic unit of the human experience is the meal. And so we're going to do a lot of orienting towards what does that mean. So you can find out all about that on my site too. Who should we thank? I want to thank the hardcore listeners. There are some hardcore listeners. Stephanie, Dilshad. There are people who come to mind. Phyllis. There are people who come to mind who have listened, Maxine, to a record number of Numinous podcast episodes. April. And and I'm feeling pretty misty about it. I want to thank the people of my land. So I have a tree out back. There is a tree out back that I refer to as my ancestor. And I refer to this tree by the name of my ancestor. This is the place where I leave offerings and prayer ribbons, and the first tree I've ever really truly hugged. And I spent a lot of time there. So I feel really, really well supported and very well received in this land. So I would like to thank the ancestors and spirits of this land for supporting me in all the work that has happened in 4 years of the podcast.
Which, for those who aren't from around here, is the Lekwungen speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations.
That's right.
On whose land we live.
That's right.
And for which we are very grateful.
Yeah. Very grateful. Thank you, husband. It's been a slice.
It has. Here's the next however many.
That's right. Bottoms up.